All right, so full disclosure, the last 5 minutes of this film, there was a huge storm outside the theater and all the power went off. And when the power came back on, I couldn't see the film, but it was still playing the audio. So I'm not exactly sure what happens at the end of the film. And honestly, based on the original film, it's the main reason that I wanted to see this movie in the first place. I think I know what happened, but does it really matter for this review? Not really. The Roses stars Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch as Ivy and Theo Rose. I think that's their last name in the film. Now that I think about it, I don't think they gave their last name. It should be Rose, right? Like the original film, The War of the Roses. Roses being the last name of the... Theo is an architect who, all in one night, loses his job and his reputation as his newly designed building is completely destroyed in this crazy storm. And coincidentally, his wife Ivy, who owns a restaurant called We Have Crabs, becomes an overnight success while people take refuge from the storm in her restaurant. Because of all this, the roles in the marriage are reversed. Theo becoming the stay-at-home dad, while Ivy rises to the top and becomes the primary source of income. With jealousy on both sides, Theo of Ivy's success and Ivy being jealous of the close relationship that Theo has with their kids, their relationship takes a turn for the worst. Slowly but surely, like a boat drifting from the shore, the two drift from each other to the point where they end up hating each other until the last 15 to 20 minutes of the film where it's all-out war. Mainly for a house that Theo has designed and built for the family, but Ivy has financed, and they're both trying to get it in the divorce. The film is directed by Jay Roach, who I'm a huge fan of because of movies like Meet the Parents, the Austin Powers franchise, and one of my all-time favorite sports films, Mystery Alaska, about the hockey team. The screenplay was written by Tony McNamara, writer for the screenplay Poor Things and The Favorite, and the screenplay is loosely based off of the book, The War of the Roses by Warren Adler. This film is also a loosely told remake of the 1989 film War of the Roses, directed by Danny DeVito, and starring Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. I was really looking forward to this film when I saw the trailer. It looked absolutely nuts, and I was a fan of the 1989 film, and I was really looking forward to these two actors reprising these two roles. They both do incredible jobs here, playing back and forth to each other with insane passive aggressiveness and hurtful dialogue that you can sometimes feel. Cumberbatch's performance is a lot of fun to watch as he has this mental breakdown after losing his job that he finds his worth in. Talking to himself while on a run with his kids had me laughing out loud, and a scene where the both are in therapy in the beginning of the film was very smart, witty, and really funny.
I would rather live with her than a wolf.
Did you say wolf?
Yeah.
Wow. One, he has arms. Well, I saw a documentary once about a man without arms, and it looked like a difficult life, particularly for the partner, so I like that he has arms.
Yeah, it's fair.
Arms.
That scene is the first scene you see in the film, and it sets you up for what you think is going to happen comedy-wise. But after you flash back to how they meet and how they build a family, and then the slow upward climb to the destruction of the marriage, and then the final battle, you kind of lose interest in what's going on. And I think you lose interest because it's such a slow climb to the top of this story. None of the real craziness happens again until the end of the film for the last 15, 20 minutes. And that's sort of what you came for, that craziness that you see in the trailer. The film gets messy when it tries to be like the original story or the original film in some parts of the story. They actually take a lot of liberties with the story to where it's not anything like the original story at all, but they still use some of the gags in the original film and the book, but they change them up. Like a scene where Ivy gives her kids sugar and Theo is kind of a health nut and tells Ivy the risks of giving tons of sugar to younger kids. And it's kind of funny, and it gives you a setup of Theo getting the kids in shape, and they become these amazing athletes, which is fine. But in the original film, when Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner have the same conversation...
And it's red for you.
I really don't think it's such a good idea to give him sweets like that.
Oh, no, it is. I mean, actually, I read that Kids who are deprived of sweets and candies all the time, they get obsessed by it and they turn out to be obese.
The setup is much different and better, where in the next scene you see the kids who've gained an enormous amount of weight. And of course, they lose the weight later, but this was such a better setup that was unexpected and funny, and the way that it was cut was great. Maybe it wasn't PC enough, I don't know. The same scene for the Roses didn't have that same comedic effect, and that seems to be the common reoccurrence in this film. Jokes and one-liners or setups that could be funny, but just fall kind of flat. I mean, they're still funny, but only because these two actors bring out what they can out of the jokes because they are such amazing actors. The original film is a cautionary tale told and narrated by the couple's friend and lawyer played by Danny DeVito.
13 years. And then, one Thursday afternoon, Barbara came to see me.
And it works really well because his narration is bookended, and at the end you see that he's telling this tale to a client of his who is wanting a divorce from his wife. And of course, at the end, the client walks out of the office and changes his mind because the story really affected him. In The Roses, it starts with a narration from the couple Ivy and Theo, but then you never hear from them again in the narration. It was kind of a strange choice to have them narrate in the beginning and just trail off. Danny DeVito's role gave the film a purpose and a reason that he's telling this story to us, this cautionary tale. I did enjoy Andy Samberg and Kate McKinnon as Amy and Barry, the couple friends. Barry, who is a lawyer and friend of Theo, who I think is the representation of the DeVito lawyer character in the original film. Samberg is really fun to watch, and he has outstanding comedic timing.
Bruno, sit and shut up!
A scene where they invite the British couple Ivy and Theo to a good old American night of shooting guns at a gun range called Guns, Guns, Guns was another great laugh-out-loud moment. And what I expected the rest of the film to be like, it was sort of that Meet the Parents humor that I wanted more of in this film. I think it tries too hard to balance the emotional scenes and the humor scenes in a way that doesn't really work. It has some really funny moments, but then when it switches to those heartbreaking, serious relationship problem moments, your emotions get all confused and the film doesn't give you time to feel one way or another. The seriousness is a little too serious, unlike the original where the seriousness was kind of campy and funny. There's also a lot of back and forth, hot and cold, pettiness, and then forgiveness. And even though I liked how they kept coming back to each other and forgiving each other and moving past whatever stupid thing they did to each other, it felt real, but a little too real for this type of dark comedy. The film has a great soundtrack with some great song choices for the film, but it was sort of funny because there's a long beginning title sequence to the song Happy Together by Susanna Haas from the 80s band The Bangles, and just happens to be Jay Roach's wife. And it seemed like the title sequence was there just to get one of her songs in there. And then again, with her rendition of Love Hurts at the end, which was fine, but it felt sort of forced and strange. You don't see a lot of title sequences like that anymore. It seemed like she was just trying to get her career to take off again. I don't know. The look of the film was what you'd expect from a comedy like this. Lots of clear, clean images, realistic color grade like most comedies. It looked great. The film has a lot of great actors that aren't really utilized well or given dialogue that makes them really shine in a scene. Like Allison Janney, who plays Ivy's tough, no-nonsense lawyer. She's great with what she's given, but when she starts to really perform, the scene's over and we never see her again. The film is fun, but it's just kind of average fun that isn't going to make a lasting impression when it's over. The Roses has so much potential and it lands a lot of funny stuff, but it's a slow climb to the real chaos and makes this wait in between some really funny dark comedy to tell an emotional story, kind of confusing our senses and emotions. The performances are great, specifically by Cumberbatch and Colman, and they really are what carries this film. But the script didn't have enough to make the story as a whole enjoyable. And I don't know if the movie and the script actually knew if it wanted to be more serious or more comedy. It was a weird in-between. I'm giving The Roses 3 stars out of 5 for all these reasons. I really came in wanting to love this film, but left glad that it was over. It's rated R for strong language, sexual references, and some drug usage. a little more adult than the original film. I actually recommend the original film over this one if you are interested in the story, maybe even the book. But I actually want to know what you think. How does this film compare to the original or the book? Again, I've never read the book, but now I'm kind of interested. Like and subscribe so we can be lifelong friends. And remember, don't wait till it streams. Let's go to the theater and let's see it together.
I get this wart.
Jesus, no.
Things are getting a little out of hand.
Well, you think?